All right. So, in this special interview for the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, I have two very special guests on the 25th anniversary of their curtain call video being recorded. We have Manny Mohtadi and Jason Cosmides. How are you guys doing?
Hey, Stephanie.
Th-
Thank you for having us.
yes, thank you for having us. We're
Great.
good.
Great. So, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask all of my guests, and that's when did the both of you fall in love with wrestling?
For me, it was 1987, and been watching since. It's been a lifelong dream of mine just to be a wrestling fan. I mean, that was like my biggest passion in life, was just wrestling and everything about it, inside and outside the business as well.
And for me, I would probably say around the same time. I remember my first memory of watching pro wrestling was like Saturday night's main event. I remember seeing like Andre and Hogan, and I just became just hooked on it after that. And that's how far I go back.
Okay. So who were some of your favorite wrestling stars, growing up as you were watching it back then?
Oh, for me, I would say the Hulk. Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior. Um, Demolition. Um, Mr. Perfect. Um, who else? Let's see. Uh, and then it became the new generation like Bret the Hitman Hart, Diesel, Kevin Nash, Razor Ramon. Uh, yeah, that's those are the ones that stick out for me. What about you, Manny?
Well, obviously, of all time, Shawn Michaels. But if you go back, Demolition, of course, Rick Rude, Ted DiBiase, Macho Warrior, Jake. I mean, you can't forget that. Mostly guys from the 80s, but if start going into the 90s, Mike Awesome, just about everybody in ECW.
Okay, so those are pretty solid favorites there. It's like you sort of mentioned the who's who of basically people, a lot of people that would be recognizable amongst, various fan groups and just people who aren't even really like fans. So those are really solid choices there. So were your family members ever into wrestling at all, or was it just a you guys thing?
Well, me and my brother used to go to shows a lot, and then Jason became my new brother, and we started going to shows a lot. And my dad used to take me to ECW events, and then me and Jay used to go to ECW events as well as WWF and WCW shows.
Yeah, no, for me it was just me and my house. I think I tried to get my brother involved with it, but no, he wasn't interested. And then, I went to a few events. Obviously I was young, so my dad went. And then as I got older, I went with my friends, met Manny in high school, and we started going to house shows, and he introduced me to ECW, went to ECW and pay-per-views, and yeah, that's pretty much my history with going to events and being a fan.
Okay, so you guys mentioned how you went to ECW shows. Were those
Mhm.
pretty wild? Because from what I see from different old clips and stuff, those shows were kind of crazy. So how were your experiences with ECW shows?
My first ECW show was February 3rd of 1996 in Queens, New York. Me and my dad, we brought a bag, of course, of beer, a boxing glove, light bulbs, some other weapons that you were allowed to bring in at the time. And a couple of the wrestlers did actually use some of the stuff that was in our bags, which is awesome because that's what I
Wow.
saw that they were doing in Philly. And I was like, you know what, let's do that. Let's bring in all these weapons and see if they use it, which they did. And it was such an amazing experience seeing all those guys, because when I was going to those shows, I was like, oh, I know these guys from the 80s. I know these guys were in the WWF or WCW, and now they're here. This is cool. Shane
Hmm.
Douglas is here. It's like, oh, awesome.
Wow. That's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. As far as like ECW goes, I mean, Manny introduced me to ECW as like an alternative wrestling product, and I was just so hooked on it. I was so fascinated that the edginess, as wild as it was, the reality based it seemed, the music was real. They played real hip hop. They played real rock. It wasn't your it wasn't the type. It was just they didn't make their own music. It was real music you heard on the radio, and it was just an awesome experience. When we went to our first show, is the best way I can describe it. And got to understand times were a lot different back then. I mean, it was like going to a wrestling event and a rock concert at the same time, and the wrestlers would get in the crowd, and it's like you were part of the show, like and it took a couple years for WWF and WCW to kind of catch on to that fans actually enjoyed that stuff.
Yeah, that just
Hmm.
sounds really cool to actually be a participant, in the audience, in that
Hmm.
way. So I imagine it has to be a beautiful time to sort of reminisce on and sort of remember because of course, one of the only ways that some of us can really only, interact, well now because of the pandemic is
Right.
through, being a part of the audience digitally. But then
Hmm.
even when stuff was normal, it's like we would do certain chants and sometimes the wrestlers will react and stuff like that, but it wasn't ever anything that much interactive, for fear of, different things popping off and different things happening, because some fans can get a little bit wild and, jump in the show and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's cool that you guys had that experience. So um how how many how many wrestling events would you say you guys had went to before the one that subsequently changed your life?
You mean together or just in general?
Together or in basically together?
Well, I met Manny in 1994. I was going to the house shows with another high school friend of ours. Um, and Manny and I started going. I want to say we started going to some events at MSG in late 1995,
Mm-hmm.
and then we went to a few shows. That's when I started to record a few of the house shows to bring the camcorder. I'm sure we'll get more into that, but um, and then there was I would say about maybe 3 or 4 house shows around the New York area that we went to. And you have to understand at that time, nothing really happened much at house shows. All the anything that would happen, like title changes or heel turns, would usually happen on TV. The house shows were kind of a tour, they would go from city to city. So you really didn't see much. And I remember, I think at some point, I don't know, at some point Manny was like, why are you taping this for? Nothing happens. You know this. You've been to these shows. Nothing ever happens.
You're
It's
wasting your time,
you're wasting your time. You're
What
you're
what are you
you're
doing? This same results every night, and the title changes, and then a minute later it goes back to the person. It's like it's a house show. What do you expect? Stop doing this. It's not worth it.
you're
And
you're you're
little,
risking yourself getting caught and taking your camera away.
and I'm glad he didn't listen to me because otherwise we wouldn't be here. If he would have listened to me, then I would have, you know.
Yeah. And it's so funny because even when you go to house shows now, so I was just telling Jason earlier, Manny, that I'm from Birmingham. And so whenever
Yes,
house shows come here, you know, it's still cool to go see, even though
of
Hmm.
it's not
course.
the live television show. But at the same time, it's like that basically nothing major is going to change except maybe a couple of times. Like it's been a couple of times in more recent years where stuff has changed, and titles have changed and stuff like that. But it's really,
Right.
really rare.
Right.
So it's just really cool. I actually enjoy going to house shows. And I really just miss live shows, period, at this point. Like I
Uh,
cannot wait until everything sort of, gets back to normal so we can start going to live shows again, because those are just my favorite things to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, you're saying you and everybody else. So believe me, once they can start filling the seats, yeah, they're gonna have sold out shows. No doubt about that. A lot of people miss that.
Yeah, definitely. Like I was happy to see live fans at WrestleMania this year, even though it
Hmm.
was so few and stuff like that. But it's just the principle of just seeing them there. Like that was really good. Like
Yeah.
that made me
The
feel
fans
happy.
mean a lot. The fans mean a lot. I mean, even before the pandemic, some of the shows were piped in crowd noise. I couldn't get with that. Now it's like, okay, you're invited to Thunderdome. You can do this, you can do this, you can't do that, can't do that. There's 10 things you can't do. You can't wear this type of shirt, you can't do this on camera, this, and otherwise they'll just boot you. You have to cheer for who they want you to cheer, you have to boo for who they want you to be boo. It's like, oh man, that's too much. There's too much to take in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot. But I feel, good about the idea that at least there is still trying to find ways to include us and still make it fun.
Somewhat in some way, yeah.
Yeah, in some way. All right.
Hmm.
So I wanted to ask you, had you both known the existence of the clique before the moment happened that you guys caught on camera?
Not at all. I mean, the only
No.
no, the only thing we saw is what was on TV with Razor and Diesel being friends and Sean and Diesel being friends. Just what we saw on camera. Nothing about Hunter anyway. And I had a 800 hotline back then, and I had no idea that Hunter was friends with all of them. And I had to know everything back then because I had to update the hotline every day. And no, we had no idea.
Okay, so what type of hotline was this? Because you mentioned that, and I don't exactly know what that is. Because around that time, I was like maybe 2 years old. So, what was that?
Back then, it was, I started around like 96. It was an 800 hotline, which I had three lines. One was a 1-800 news line. The other one was a question and answer hotline where the fans call in and then I answer their questions. And then the third one was a merchandise hotline where they can buy tapes or VHS copies from me for certain shows. And it got pretty popular because I actually got the number on Raw on a sign when I was in the front row, and that helped it out a lot too. Back before when back then we had basically just wrestling hotlines where you would call into or dirt sheet writers. Now it's all podcasts, and I love the way it's coming to and the internet news sites. But that's what we had back then. Those were the only two choices: was the hotlines and the dirt sheet writers, where you would sign up and you get it in the mail, all the news that's happening.
Yeah. And most of the time when we got them, it was late. you know,
Yes,
like
that's
the
another
stuff's
thing.
already happened. It's like we're reading it, and it's like, what? Wait, we already know that they're telling us the raw results. The superstar results because they already happened. Because a lot of the times they did the recordings and or tapings, and it was like weeks out. So
Okay, so if that was the case, then is it safe to assume that you guys may or may not have known that Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were leaving WWE to go to WCW?
Well,
and
a
many knew.
weird story, which I know Scott Hall never has admitted, and I know Kevin Nash hasn't admitted. Scott Hall says his 90-day clause he gave, which would have been February or whatever it was. But I used to call Howard Finkel's wrestling hotline, and he used to update house shows when this wrestler is appearing here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And randomly he blurted out, "Oh, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash are assigned to WCW." And it was just out of random because he would never give that kind of information out. And not only that, nobody knew their real names at the time, but I did because I had a wrestling hotline, so I had to know everything. And all this time, that's like, and this was back in January. So February, March, April, May, that's like 5 months. I know these guys are selling out. They're leaving us. And I'm so pissed. And like, I knew they were going to be jobbed out over the next months. And I see what's going on. And So I knew it for a long time. There, I mean, Scott Hall has always said he gave his 90 days, but it was more than that because I believe Howard Finkel's word was true.
Hmm. Wow. That's a lot. So, can you both describe how the both of you, felt that night when you watched the clique embrace each other that night in 1996?
Jay, you want to go first?
Yeah, yeah. Shocked. We were. I was definitely shocked because wrestling back then was very black and white, good guy, bad guy. You never saw them shaking hands after the match. Um, it just was just out of the ordinary, you know, and hugging, kissing in the ring, and we're like, what the hell is going on? And then you see Hunter come in, you see Razor, and they're doing this click sign, and it was just shocking, and we were just, I mean, Manny was definitely, if you heard, he had the true raw emotion that a lot of us were feeling that night.
I mean, the annoying kid, the annoying screaming kid.
Yes. Now, I won't
Yeah,
say you were being annoying though, because I won't say that because I probably would have reacted the same way. So I can't even pretend that I'm not
it
loud. So it's okay.
it was actually magical because usually I'm not that vocal. I'm usually a shy person, but that whole card was amazing. I mean, it was magic. Going into it, we didn't think much. It was just okay, cage match, Shawn Diesel. But you had Steve Austin going up against Jake Roberts, and that's when he was starting to become Stone Cold Steve Austin. You had the return of the Ultimate Warrior at Madison Square Garden facing Owen Hart,
Yep.
which happened
He
to.
broke his wrist.
Yeah, that's why you see him wear his cast all the time after that because that shoulder tackle that the Warrior gave him. It was the night the tag team titles changed and stayed changed
Yes.
at the Garden,
And
and
that was on Raw the next day. They
but
showed
that
them.
was pure emotion, because it just mind blew me. Not just when it's like face turn, heel turn. When Diesel lost, he was a heel, and then a couple seconds later, Michaels embraced him. Okay, so here you go, Kevin Nash. Now he's face again, and Scott Hall comes out. All right, this is cool. And then when Hunter comes out, it's like mind blowing because why is he even coming out? It's like what's the point of this? And it was incredible that night. And we purposely sat in the 300 sections all the way on top so we wouldn't get caught with the camera or we wouldn't get it
Man,
taken away.
In the
he knew I had that
nosebleed.
figured out. I had that. Yeah, can't get too
Jason,
close with a camera.
that was Jason's idea. No, let's not sit in the 200s. Let's not sit in the 100s. You know, that's where all the lights are. Everybody sees us. He purposely got us tickets for 300s. Let's sit far back. Nowadays, it's different. Like in the last few years, we are always in the front row, but back then we purposely went in the back. And Jay, I want you to tell the story that how everybody thinks we sneaked in or smuggled in the cameras. Why don't you tell them how we really got it in? Because what you tell me all the time is like the actual truth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I did want to say about like Manny said, it wasn't just the cage match, the curtain call that was special that night. The whole event was special. I mean, it felt like a pay-per-view event, and it was a house show, and it was non-televised, and that's what we were like. We were really excited about going. I mean, a Sunday night is a school night. Normally our parents would be like, "No, you're not going to New York City," which was like about a little over an hour train ride away. It was a school night. I mean, it was like in May. It was almost the end of the year. Finals were coming up, and we really wanted to go, and we're glad that we did. But as going back to with the camera, a lot of people think that the cameras, unlike today, they're on your cell phone. They're like pocket cams. They're just sorry. They're just easy to yeah, they're just more portable. Back then, the VHS cameras generally were bigger. I had a VHS-C camera, which was like half the size, and the little tapes actually fit in like this little shell that you would play in a sorry, you would actually play in a regular VHS in a VHS player. So the camera wasn't that big, it wasn't that heavy. It actually fit in a camera bag, and just enough that I had enough batteries and tape to tape about 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours of the event. So on if Manny remembers, on extended play, the poorer quality,
Yes,
but you get
EP.
more.
Yeah,
You get EP.
6 hours on,
You get
on that one. 6, 4, and 2. LP, SP,
yeah,
SLP.
yeah. I schooled Manny on that, and he was like, he thought I was crazy, and I said, no, you have to pay attention to this stuff, you know, otherwise you're never gonna run out of tape. And but yeah, I mean, so that's how I figured out enough battery, enough tape, and we almost didn't capture the curtain call.
Yes, because I was
We
an
almost
idiot,
didn't
and I
capture.
and I was I
Really?
was I was pressuring Jason to film us starting the Scott Hall "You Sold Out" chant because I was so pissed off that he was leaving, and I started this chant, and we were in the 300 section. I'm starting this chant, like nobody's following, and then after a while, a few people start chanting. It's like, how can you be the one that start the chant and also film the current call? It's true. And then finally, the whole crowd started chanting, and I was like, Jay, did you get that? No, he actually cut off the cameras, and I was so upset at him. I'm like, why'd you do that? But he did it for the right reasons, and his mind was somewhere else. He probably said to himself, I got to get this cage match on tape in its entirety. And if it wasn't for
Yeah,
that, then maybe he would have gotten the full finish to the match, but he wouldn't have gotten the current call, and then we wouldn't be here.
right, right. Yeah, the battery or I would have ran out of tape. It was cutting it pretty close
Battery
because
or tape. And I'm glad all these times he didn't listen to me.
That's insane. I feel like actually my best friend would appreciate this part of the conversation because she's a photographer and she records things. So I'm pretty sure she would
okay.
appreciate this entire component about you having a smaller camera and just being able to get that
Mhm.
in there. Like that is amazing.
And you
Oh
didn't mention
man.
how you didn't even mention how you got it in though. You have to tell them that. How you got the camera in all the
um
time. 6, 7 times we
well,
did it,
I
right?
yeah, yeah, and I had it was a regular, it was a small bag, and it was just, I don't know what else I had inside the bag, maybe drinks or food or something, but I was able just, and I remember at the garden they were like, "What's this?" And I said, "Oh, it's just a camera." All right, and there was an incident, like a boxing incident that happened where there was like a riot that broke out. I believe it was like late 95 or early 96. And I remember the security was even more tight at the garden for events in general. So
Hmm.
I said, well, they may not, they may not even let us in with this thing. And then what do I do? You know?
But
Um,
to my recollection, we never planned like, okay, let's hide this camera here. Let's hide this. You got your tapes, hide them here. I remember
right,
we just walk in. You had your camera on your side, this and that. Because the security would never think that the 16, 17-year-olds would go in and videotape a house show. For what reason they need to.
right,
You would just open it up, and if they actually asked, you would actually open it and say, "Oh, it's just a camera," and then they look at it and they let you go. And we just walked in. We never smuggled. We never
right.
hid it. We never planned it. We never said, "Oh, we might get caught." That was not on our mind. Our mind was, "Let's go in, enjoy the show, and tape the show."
Okay.
Yeah.
See, now I don't think that would happen, but or at least here in Birmingham that would not happen. But basically what you're saying is they just let you in with the camera because they just didn't expect anything bad out
Yeah,
of
we
it.
never hid the camera.
That's
Yeah.
cool. That is really
Yeah.
cool. I know being in Madison Square Garden had to be amazing too. That's like the mecca of wrestling, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Every time it felt like special. And they always put on a good show there, especially the cage matches. um Cage matches were rare for house shows, I don't know, and it was
Yes.
just special to 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 go and to see it live, especially the old cage. You know, they don't do those cage matches anymore.
No, not that
New
style,
cage.
of course.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, maybe one day I'll make it. We'll see. And I'll possibly see Barclays too. Well, you never know. So, did
Yes.
you ever expect the footage to reach WWE in any way?
Well, it actually leaked out accidentally to a dirt sheet writer. Well, not accidentally, but I I was
Deliberately.
upset at yeah, I was upset at Jay, and I leaked it out to a
Well, yeah.
dirt
I
sheet
mean,
writer. I made a copy for him, not knowing he was going to screw us over, and then boom, it airs October of '97 Raw, not knowing that we're going to see our own footage. Here we are. Oh wow, it's like what is this? That's our footage. Why is it doing that? Two things I was upset about. One was the fact that they aired our footage, and I had no knowledge of that it was going to air, and why was this footage stolen? And two, they blocked out our voice. But the
Mm.
other thing was I thought about was like, wait a second, why is WWE's quality so bad? Because it's been copied over and over and over and over. And that was the first time it ever aired anywhere. And then years later is when it actually blew up. It never blew up until like the 2000s later now. And now it's like ridiculous because nobody mentioned back then, oh, you guys are responsible for taping that. You guys are responsible for Austin 316. You guys are responsible for the Attitude Era. This a Triple H punish, this, that. None of that came to light until like a few years ago. I don't take responsibility for that. I think it would have happened anyway. But it's
right.
nice to know that people think of that. But they're the quality of their tape when they aired it, it was like, oh, at least they could have gotten a nice quality tape of it. And speaking of the tape, I might have one right next to me that could be the original. That's
Oh,
Oh,
boom.
oh, look at
Ah,
that.
look,
That is
look
so
the
cool.
these are the regular stickers from the magazines from the '90s.
Uh-huh.
Because Stephanie, back then it wasn't considered the curtain call. People didn't call it anything except maybe farewell to the clique. So I
yeah.
just called it, and Jason just called it MSG bootleg or MSG fair. What would we call it? The click tape. It's on a VHS tape with other stuff on it, and this tape has only been viewed 3 times to protect its quality,
Uh-huh.
and that's why the tab is ripped off so it can't be recorded over. But this is the tape actually.
Oh.
So this is the part that A&E didn't, I guess, because of time or whatever. They
Mhm.
edited my 1 hour interview into 2 minutes, which is cool still. But they didn't air this part. But here you are seeing this live and in person.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's the current. Yeah, that's the current doll tape.
Yep.
I'm a sucker for
All,
nostalgia.
all, all, all thanks to Jason. He did this for me.
Wow.
Yep.
That is so cool. So, so basically the company didn't necessarily reach out to you guys in any way, after that point back then, but had they reached out to you like years after the fact?
The thing is, I never acknowledged that me and Jason were the guys that filmed the current call for many, many years, maybe 10, 15 years or whatever it was, because just I was so upset how it got leaked out. So I never really reached out to WWE or anything like that. It was Jason that I think back in 2014 that reached out to them and said when they posted the video of the curtain call that, hey, we were the guys, me and Manny filmed this footage. That's when the WWE contacted us for the first time in 2000, late 2014 for a Click DVD that was coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I would not even tell my friends, like even my close friends, my wrestling friends, the people I did pro wrestling with, anybody. I would just take it out of my mind like it never existed because of the fact of how it leaked. So it bothered me a lot. But now I'm open to it. I talk to all the fans, everybody that messages me every day, and it's nice. It's a nice feeling to know. But the thing is, I always say this: most people think I'm the guy that just filmed the current call and that's it. But Jason was the one that actually filmed it he's the one that brought the camera. I was just tagging along as, you know, it was just so much fun doing those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And Manny is spot on when he says about, about not getting noticed. I don't think it really, once the video was out there, I don't think anybody really cared who did it, as long as there was a video out there and it didn't really make sense. Who would believe us anyway? Back
Mm-hmm.
in the late 90s, early 2000s, who would believe us? I mean, they would say, "Art, what's your proof then? What's your proof?" Oh, I have a video. Yeah, so do I. I have a video too. How do I know yours is legit? And so I was kind of like, man, we just kind of just forgot about it. It's already out there, and let it be, let it be, and nobody would is going to acknowledge us. And in 2014, it was on the website.
Mm-hmm.
They interviewed some of the wrestlers, superstars. Sorry, we can't say wrestlers, right, Manny? We got to say we
Yes,
got to say superstars. They corrected
superstars.
us once. Yeah. And so and there was a comment section. I don't know if they do that now, but there was a comment section, and I wrote in, hey, this is me and my friend Manny. We filmed this. If anybody's interested, please contact me. And I didn't think anybody was going to. I thought they would have deleted it, thought of it like a joke or something. And then months later, I got an email on my LinkedIn from a producer. Hey, is this the Jason Cosmides who filmed the curtain call? I said, wow, wow, this is real, But I didn't understand why they wanted to contact me, because they already had the footage. They already had it on DVDs. They just had a Click episode on the Monday Night War series.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, if that was our chance, that was it. What else are they going to do? And the guy said, no, we're going to do a DVD. We want to interview you guys. Are you available? And I said, yeah, we're available. you know, and I said, where are you located? I said, I'm in Florida. And he said, all right, well, you're going to be in New York? I said, no, but if you'll fly me up, I'll come up. And he said, no, that's not I said, for real, but anyway, so they interviewed me down here when they were in SmackDown down here in Florida. And so I did my interview there. Manny did his up in Connecticut. He was able to go to the headquarters and do it there, which was awesome. I'm kind of jealous about that. I wish we were together. That would have been very cool. Now looking back in hindsight, I probably should have flew up, but at the time, wasn't thinking about that. Um, but yeah, that's how we got recognized. Finally, officially, we got recognized. We could say that we're officially recognized by WWE. You know,
And
it's
the
there.
crazy part of that story is when I first walked into the WWE studios in Stamford, Connecticut, Kieran, the WWE producer, he said, we've been looking for you guys for a while. I'm like thinking in my head, you could have found us so easily. We were
Yeah,
already on Wikipedia or wherever. I was like, you serious? Wow.
Wow.
and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there's a guy working there that knew who we were.
of course. Because he's the one that played the rib on me on the phone. The time we got arrested with Triple H and Scott Hall, it was actually Scott Hall's idea to get us arrested on backstage on Monday Night Raw, but it actually happened years before with our friend who works with WWE on the phone with me. Told me, since you taped it, the WWE is going to send you a lawyer, a lawsuit, because you acknowledged that you were the one that filmed it. I tried to get out of it, and after a while, he's like, "Oh, I'm just ribbing you. It's a joke." I'm like, "Oh man!" After all that, so
and I and I guess, like Manny said, I guess that was probably one of the fears we had, is that there may be some legal ramifications. But I think because we were kids, we were under 18, I think we were good. And the fact that they're just using the video, I mean, if they were that bothered by it, why are they using it? I mean, they got that thing all over it's all over the place. They love it because they don't have their own.
Right.
They turn their cameras off. you
yes,
know.
Mm-hmm. And normally you would think they would get something like that, but then they didn't. So it's just like, well, it's
Yeah.
theirs,
because
let's just use it. And
yeah,
it's and it's cool that it turned out that way. So I can't even, that's just an amazing story how that turned out for you guys. So I want to ask you, do you feel that your footage was sort of the prerequisite for where kayfabe is or isn't in this day and age for wrestling in terms of
I
social media and interviews?
I think it helped break kayfabe and change the business for forever, as a lot of people like to say. I mean, I can always go with that, even though. But can you imagine this if this happened, let's say in the 1960s or the 1970s in professional wrestling? If we were the guys that filmed something like this happening, what would happen is we would get death threats from the promoters. We would be hated by the fans. We would be wanted to be killed by the fans for doing something like this in the 60s and 70s. But since it happened in the 90s, we're like loved all over by everybody.
Yeah.
And most of the comments and everything is positive. Oh, you guys created Attitude Era. You guys created Stone Cold Steve Austin. You guys created this, that, this, that. It's like, okay, I'll take it. I mean, everything's positive now, but if it was back then, can you imagine? We wouldn't be alive today. We'd be killed.
Yeah, yeah, and it's Manny. It's funny that one of the things I wanted to mention. I still didn't, unfortunately, I still didn't finish watching the full Shawn Michaels documentary. I think I'm about halfway. One of the
Okay,
things, and I didn't even know about this, is that the Rockers won the tag team titles,
of course.
and then they took it away from them.
Yeah,
So
because
it's kind of, and that was, but it was not televised. But there was people there in the audience that saw that. So what did it say? Oh, it didn't really happen. It's fake
it,
news. You know?
yeah, it's like it didn't really happen. Even WWE shows it all the time now. It's like the
R-
titles changed that night. They were actually champions. It's kind of like Andre the Giant winning the world title. It's like he won it for whatever it was for a day, whatever they gave it to
Right.
DiBiase. They didn't want to acknowledge it, then they did, and then now it's official that he is. And then it's like the Rockers were actually tag team champions.
Right.
Right. Right. And then it's like the way I feel about it now is just I feel like what you guys did sort of triggered, how we sort of watch wrestling now in terms of, like we mentioned earlier, with house shows and then with a lot of the stars on social media, sharing, a little bit more of their lives and not really, and basically giving off the impression that who they are is basically sort of separate from who they would be on television, or sometimes they'll utilize social media to sort of feed into their personality on TV. So I really think that your footage, is a part of that, and I feel like you guys deserve all the credit for that, definitely.
Oh, thank
So
you. Yeah,
yeah.
I did want to answer. I know I didn't quite answer the question that you had, but do I think it started it? I mean, it definitely kicked it off where it was like, okay, there is some behind the scenes stuff that fans were want to know about, Um, but do I think it's becoming too much? Yeah, but that's largely due to the internet and social media, and everybody's a busybody and needs to know. And they say inquiring minds want to know. So I just think that that's the world that we live in. Even you see it in pro sports now. It's like it's not just ball players. They just go on and play ball. Whether they're whatever sport you are, there's always, oh, they have social media. They're doing this. They're doing that. Um, they're more engaged. It's not just this is you're a fictional character on TV and that's it. Then you go and live your life. I mean, man, he'll tell you we saw Cactus Jack Mankind at Sabaros with his family eating pizza at the Sunrise Mall before he was
1995.
in, yeah, before he was in WWE, and like, and nobody was, he was just there. He was just chilling with his family, and we went up to him, hey, are you Cactus Jack? He's like, yeah. And we just thought that was so cool, such a real moment. But I think, nowadays everybody would be pulling out their phones and want to take pictures and selfies, and we were just so cool about it with him, right? I mean, I think when his daughter's probably there, I think she's a wrestler now.
Yeah, and the best part of that day is I'll never forget from any wrestler, because back then it was only dirt sheets and everything. You know, I bluntly asked them. As I was 16, whatever it was at the time, I was like, "Hey, are you ever gonna go to WWF?" And he was in ECW at the time. He's like, "Oh, probably in about a year." Without even hesitating, he told me the truth because it actually happened almost a year later. Boom, the
Yeah.
promos came in for Mankind. He was so truthful and honest with me, and like, wow. And back then, it's like, oh, really? It's like I had a wrestling hotline then, and I didn't even tell anybody that.
Hmm.
It was a nice thing. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
Remember a half hour later, he came to a store that we were at. He's like,
KB
"Hey, see you guys
Toys.
again."
KB Toys. Yeah.
Yeah.
I miss that store.
What a yes.
I miss that store so much. See, you guys are way better than me because if I saw Mick Foley anywhere, my face would have just been froze the whole time, like and I
Oh
probably
yeah.
just would have smiled the whole time and just said, how much I love him, and that's just it.
Hmm.
Like I'm terrible when sometimes I'm just really terrible when it comes to just saying stuff. It's just like anything will just come out of my mouth. Like whenever I see somebody like that, it's crazy. Um, so, did you guys feel like the clique had every right to sort of embrace each other in that moment, or do you feel that maybe they should have just kept kayfabe alive and just not done that for the sake of television? Because in the biography that Shawn Michaels had this past Sunday, Ric Flair was on there, and he mentioned that if that had happened, just like you did, Manny, if that had happened back then, during his age, during the 60s and 70s, they would have been booed out of the building or possibly killed and all of that. So do you guys feel like they should have embraced, or do you feel that they should not have?
I feel like they
Well,
should
they.
have, and it was done for the right reasons. It never, if you look at it now, it never hurt anybody. It
Mhm.
only
Nope.
helped the business, if anything, and helped us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say, yeah. I mean, not knowing, obviously now watching the videos and the backstories, and you realize these guys were really close. They were a tight knit group that was always together, and they knew it was their last day of working with each other, at least at that time. So they wanted to do a send off. They wanted to say goodbye to everybody. That was it. So I mean, hey, they asked the boss, and he said do it. You know,
Mhm.
and they wound up doing it, and more power to them. I just wish those guys, I think back, I just say, I wish one of those guys stayed that year, because WWF went to shit right after for a couple of years. And I would say, if I don't know, I would say I wish Kevin Nash stayed. Scott Hall, he had his issues, but I wish Kevin Nash stayed. And because this, I know I'm going off course here, but at the time, um, Brett wasn't there around that. He left. He took a little break after WrestleMania 12. Warrior was gone like a few weeks later, and then Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were all gone. By July, um, and those were four big guys that were gone. And then you had um, the outside. Then you had the Bash at the Beach when Hogan and they joined the NWO. That just WCW went through the roof after that. And as a wrestling fan, you're like, wow, they got the edge now, you know, at least for 2 years, but yeah, that was the new generation era at its low point.
Yeah, so essentially them leaving just triggered the Monday Night War and everything that we know about it. I think you're probably the first person who's ever been on my show that basically outright said that WWE really wasn't anything back then, after they had left at that point. But I'm glad you guys feel that way about them embracing, because I felt the
Mhm.
same way myself. I was just like, if they were best friends, let them have their moment. Like, let them
Right,
hug
right.
each other. I
And you
mean,
know what?
gosh.
I always thought, what if the video didn't exist and only those three pictures that the people from ringside or a couple of fans, would it have been as big? I don't know. I don't think so, but I think the video helped. No.
Yeah, it just would have been like one of those like urban legends. Some people
Yeah.
say it happened, some people say it didn't happen. Um, And you see nowadays in the news, I mean, video, you have video, it's just so powerful, says so much. And what they did uh, that night was something special. I mean, Manny will tell you, um, before that, the best moment that I house show was when Diesel won the belt. You know, when he won it at Madison Square Garden against Bob Backlund in like 8 seconds, and and at that time I thought it was awesome. Looking back now, I thought it was the dumbest idea because it made absolutely no sense from a wrestling storyline point of view, where he went from a bad guy of like a night or two before into a good guy into world champ, and it's like there was no
Yeah.
build up. There was no
It's like,
build
yeah,
up.
Lex Luger slam. Yeah, let's
Yeah,
bring Lex Luger out and slam
yeah,
Yoko. Same thing.
yeah. It just made no sense. But I was a
But
mark,
it
and
was cool. But it was
yeah,
cool though.
it
That
was
was
it was
awesome.
cool, unexpected. And then obviously WWE they taped it. It was a short match, but Manny got his hands on a bootleg of that event. I was like, wow, you got a bootleg of this, and Manny, the quality was poor. It was like the generational loss, and what prompted me to start taping shows is that just buying a lot of these bootlegs from these tape traders that I used to pay like 20, $25 for of my shoveling snow money, which was a lot back then, and it just was just poor quality. It was like, you know what, I can do a better job than this, and I will do a better job than this, you
And he
know,
has.
you
Yeah.
know, just didn't
Yeah.
have no idea that I was going to be taping the most memorable uh, wrestling moment of the 90s, or most controversial moment, if you want to,
Okay. So I want to ask you, how has this moment exactly changed your lives for the better in terms of the present?
For me, that I actually acknowledge it now. I used to just hide away from it for years. Now it's like pretty much an everyday thing because I get messages all the time. A lot of similar questions, but that's okay too from fans all over. But I'm okay with it now. Everything's good. I'm okay with being known as the current call kid or being the guy that was annoying or was the screaming Mark, and Jay was the guy with the camera going
hmm.
crazy. So I'm okay with it. It's cool.
Yeah, same here. I don't really, it doesn't really change me. I just think it's cool, to just get recognized, something we did as a kid. I mean, if you told us back when at the time, hey, you guys are going to be recognized, you guys will be on DVDs and such, and podcasts and all that, I would probably would have said, no way, I probably would have, I wouldn't have been able to comprehend it. But I don't have a presence really on social media. I have just a Facebook page, but I just, it's for family stuff. But no, it's cool. I read the comments on YouTube. Very interesting comments from fans, and I do reply from time to time. A lot of misconceptions, that people feel. They think we're like, millionaires. They think, they think that they just think that WWE bought the rights or something. It's a lot of crazy stuff that people think, but a lot of people don't realize is that legally, um, what we did was wrong, and it just
What about the
it
confiscating comments? Everyone's, oh, they confiscated the tape. Yeah, right.
yeah, they thought that they confiscated the tape, that they took everything from us, and then but um no, but there was once where they did confiscate at a Nassau Coliseum. Got a little too close to the ring. Thought maybe I can film a little closer to the ring, and
Hmm.
then like security guard said, they basically said, "Give me the tape," and I had to give up the tape. But fortunately, it was a really weak house show. You know,
Good. And
at
and the, and I always mess with them. I would say the reason why they took your tape because I wasn't with you at that one. You brought your other friend.
yeah, it wasn't looking out for me. But Yeah, just a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool comments, and it's just like I just think it's basically what's happening with everything today. Nostalgia is big. What didn't seem as popular back then is now popular now because people, are, especially during the pandemic, they're reminiscing of the good times, and I think that's very important that we all reflect that. Yeah, times were good and they will be good again, but we got to get there. You
Yes, and
know.
WWE Network and Peacock Network is doing great things for as far as documentaries go, keeping people entertained. They're doing a great job. So much love to WWE for what they did for us and what they're doing.
Well, that's pretty good to hear, how it sort of affected your lives, but then it's good that you guys are just have that good relationship, with them because of that event and just how, it's impacted wrestling history even now because we're still talking about it and that was 25 years ago today. So that's just a
Yeah.
really cool thing. Yeah. Manny's like, whew.
Yeah, it's
But
funny. It's funny you say that because I think back, I'm like, well, if I was, if we were back in the mid '90s and somebody brought up something that happened, 25 years ago, say like in the, early '70s or like, I probably wouldn't have, I probably wouldn't have cared. I would have been like that, what does that have to do with what happens today? You know,
Mhm.
but it's just different. It's just different. I think as we're in this generation now where things are just fresh with this digital age and things are online, everything kind of stays fresh, and people's minds. So things kind of live a little bit longer than they used to.
definitely. So, who are some of your favorite wrestlers now, per se? Like male or female?
For me, I would say I've been a big fan of Roman Reigns. I like what he's doing. I think that's it.
Okay. I like Roman Reigns too. I love what he's doing as well. It's really interesting. He's probably the most compelling he's been in like the past couple of years, and I love it so much.
Um, I can't answer that because I don't really I don't really watch wrestling. If I say Goldberg, I mean that's kind of Oldberg, but he's still wrestling, so I guess that's but much credit to him. He's still going, but I guess he or Brock Lesnar, those guys are still going. Um, that's that's really it. I'm sorry. I wish I had uh, you know, what's his name? The Miz. Is he still
Hmm.
wrestling?
Yes, he is. He
Yeah,
actually just
he
got
is.
injured,
Okay.
so injured for like the very first
Hmm.
time. So he's out right now, but he is still wrestling. He's still active.
Good. Yeah, there was a good documentary I was watching the other night on the WWE Network.
Hmm.
So yeah, he took a lot of crap on his way up. Uh, so he paid his dues. Good for him. I didn't realize because he was on the reality show, the reality was it the Real World, and then he was on Tough Enough, and then he just was the you're the Real World guy.
No,
Hmm.
But
he deserves everything he's got. And
Yeah.
yeah,
you watch that WrestleMania 27 main event where he comes out and he fights Cena, even though he loses. That made him a star. He is a star. Nobody can
Yeah.
deny that.
And I was at that WrestleMania too. That was in Atlanta. I
Very
know
nice.
that's the one that everybody kind of critically craps on, but I don't care. I was happy I was there. I was 17,
Of
so
course.
forget it.
Woo!
That is my WrestleMania. Forget
That's your
y'all.
moment.
yeah. Well, WrestleMania 11 was my memorable, and that gets crapped on as the worst WrestleMania. So, you know,
Oh, really? So
uh,
so people crap on that one worse than they crap on 27?
WrestleMania 11
I
was the
guess,
worst. Me
Wow,
and
okay.
Jason went to that one.
Mhm.
It felt like a house show, and it pretty much was.
Mm.
And that
yeah.
was in
I mean,
Connecticut.
yeah,
That was a bad
they say
experience for the first
the
WrestleMania.
main event, the main event was Lawrence Taylor against Bam Bam
And
Bigelow, and the winner at the end of the night wasn't even a wrestler. Think
yeah,
Wow.
about that.
and Bam Bam was the star that night because he
Yeah.
deserved everything he got. I mean, it was just, and of
Well,
course Sean lost. So
Well, what does the future hold for the both of you?
Yeah, you want to go first?
Uh, yeah, I hope my cryptocurrency turns around. Um, it's really down right now. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what the future holds. I mean, I thought after I thought after the we did the DVD, the Click DVD, and then the Raw segment. I thought that was it. I thought that was the end. We did our interview. That's it. Time to move on. It's we already recognized. And then I got a call from a producer last year. He contacted me, wanted to do the interview for the Shawn Michaels DVD, and I talked to him for about an hour, and he was not did not really know too much. He was an old school wrestling guy, but he wanted to know more about the curtain call and what happened and how we got involved. What was our involvement with the whole recording and all that, and I explained to him, and it was like the height of COVID. It was like the peak of COVID, and he was going to come and interview me. He interviewed Manny because he's up north, and unfortunately, due to COVID, we just weren't able to get together. So Manny was able to take take the torch. Oh, I don't know what the word is, but he
Steal
was
the
able
spotlight.
to still yeah. And so he did a great job representing the both of us, and interviewed for that. And then I don't know what else the future holds. I mean, if WWE calls us for some special event or something, or maybe they might have a real what's the word, like a type of I don't want to say Hall of Fame with if they
I
have
was gonna
like
say that.
memorabilia, maybe we'll have something there, but I don't know. They still have to have a building. I'm sure they'll have a wing of nostalgic stuff. That's why they probably have this show. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I just wish all this happened like, not 20 something years later. I wish a lot of it happened sooner when we were younger. But you know what? Hey, it's happening now because the times have changed, and that's great. So count your blessings.
Absolutely, I agree with
Yeah.
you 100%. And for me, it's just as far as wrestling or WWE. I mean, I'll still keep doing these podcasts. Um, at first, I was against them. I didn't really want to do them. I told myself that there's no need for me to actually do them. But I said, you know what? Let me do them. They're fun. And I told Jay I'm just going to cancel all of them. But it turned out the other way. Jay talked me into it, and I said, you know what? Yeah, I'll do all of them that we're booked for. And probably in about, I don't know, I'm guessing 5 years, there might be a physical WWE museum. So that's probably our next place that we'll wind up in for the tape, obviously. And so looking forward to that.
Okay. Well, Manny and Jason, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast.
Thank
Um,
you, Stephanie.
yeah, like
Pleasure.
thank you guys so much. Like I'm really honored to talk to you both. So if you can just tell people, where to follow you and where to, find you on social media and just anything that you've got going on and stuff, you may do so
Sure.
now.
Sure. I'm on Facebook, Manny Mohtadi, MANI MOHTADI. And then I'm also on Instagram as WWE Curtain Call Kid. That's all.
And yeah, like I said, I just have a Facebook page with, my name. Uh, if anybody wants to, feel free to reach out to me and message me. I'll be more than happy to reply. And uh, that's really it.
And yes, he's the real Curtain Call Kid, not me. I'm just I'm just the annoying guy.
We make a good tag team.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. You guys take care.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie. Take care.